Trump orders a ban on Nvidia's AI chips. The CCP's 10-year tech dream cut off overnight. Blackwell becomes a Cold War weapon, Xi's tech self-reliance shatters. Nuclear test rumors, the fentanyl trap, the battlefield is heating up on all fronts. Don't miss the next drop, subscribe and hit the bell. Trump has made another move, this time the target isn't taxes or tariffs, it's chips. In a 60 Minutes interview, he said plainly, Nvidia's newest Blackwell chip is 10 years ahead of the world, I won't let China get it. With one sentence, he lit the fuse to the global tech war's powder keg. Because this chip isn't just the heart of AI, it's the soul of warfare. It can make missiles more precise, surveillance faster, and AI weapons smarter. If the CCP gets it, it leaps across a decade-wide technology gap and steps straight onto America's intelligent battlefield. Yet even as Trump blocked exports, he loosened one screw on Beijing, cutting fentanyl tariffs and pausing rare earth sanctions. Is that a deal, or a trap? Even stranger, Trump hinted that China and Russia are conducting underground nuclear tests. That suggests the US and China aren't merely in a tech Cold War, they may be on a countdown to nuclear confrontation. AI chips, nuclear testing, fentanyl talks, three seemingly separate issues are in fact one larger, power game. On the surface, a truce. Underneath, the prologue to a new Cold War. Trump blocks Nvidia chips, AI becomes the new battlefield. On November 2, in a CBS 60 Minutes interview, US President Trump said Nvidia's newly launched Blackwell chip is 10 years ahead of every other chip, the most advanced AI chip today, and that he would not allow countries like China to obtain it. Nvidia's market cap surpassed $5 trillion last week, making it the world's most valuable company, with a dominant share in the AI chip market. Since August, questions have swirled over whether Trump would allow exports of a simplified version of Nvidia's next-gen GPU to China. At the time, he hinted he might permit sales of a downgraded model in China. That triggered criticism from China hawks in Washington, who fear such technology would dramatically boost the CCP's military capabilities and accelerate its AI development. Nvidia's Blackwell B30A chip underpins the training of cutting-edge AI systems at organizations like OpenAI. If China obtains the B30A, it would punch through US export controls, letting Beijing skip years of R&D and jump to the front line of the tech race. America's edge would vanish. House Select Committee on the CCP Chairman, Representative John Molinar, said this would be no different than providing weapons-grade uranium to Iran. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said last week that given the US stance on China, the company has not sought Washington's permission to sell there. At a developer conference he noted, they've made it very clear they don't want Nvidia there right now. Before last week's Trump-Xi meeting, Trump suggested he might discuss these chips with Xi Jinping, but in the end the topic didn't come up. AI is the main arena for the future U.S.-China showdown. The CCP's 15th Five-Year Plan, Tech Self-Reliance or Political Slogan? On October 28, Beijing released 15th Five-Year Plan, proposals calling for accelerating high-level, self-reliance and self-strengthening in science and technology, comprehensively enhancing independent innovation, seizing the commanding heights of tech development, and constantly fostering new quality productive forces. Experts see no change in the fundamentals of U.S.-China relations, it remains the world's most complex and intensely competitive relationship. The CCP continues to prioritize a tech-industrial, power-through-manufacturing strategy against the U.S., while sidelining efforts to rebalance its economy. White House officials have repeatedly said the U.S. will leverage its economic power to force Beijing to abandon mercantilist, export-first policies and heavy industrial subsidies, and to boost domestic consumption among China's 1.4 billion people. Because the regime's aim isn't people's livelihoods, Trump's high tariffs did not force Beijing to adjust its economic structure. Instead, it retaliated by restricting rare earth exports and refusing to buy American soybeans. That hurt U.S. manufacturers and farmers, problems any president must weigh. Wendy Cutler, deputy director of the Asia Society Policy Institute and a former senior U.S. trade official, said the Trump-Xi meeting aimed to cool tensions rather than achieve breakthroughs. In other words, the relationship remains adversarial, planting the seeds for larger future clashes. If the CCP secures the most advanced chips, its missiles gain precision, especially troubling amid rumors of clandestine nuclear testing, making the global threat far graver. Nuclear test rumors return, a Cold War shadow over the world. In the CBS interview, Trump also said Russia and China are conducting nuclear tests, but not publicly. He did not specify the nature of those tests. He noted, "Look, the world is big despite the power of these weapons, you may not know where they test. They do it deep underground. People can't tell, you might only feel slight tremors. They're testing. Beyond China and Russia, North Korea and Pakistan are also testing, the US is not, so we need to test, too." Russia recently announced test launches of the nuclear-powered Burevestnik cruise missile and a nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable undersea drone. On November 2, Energy Secretary Chris Wright told Fox News that the nuclear weapons tests ordered by President Trump would not involve nuclear detonations at present. "I think what we're discussing now are systems tests, not nuclear explosions. These are what we call subcritical, testing all the other components to ensure proper structure and readiness." Asked if residents near the Nevada test site would see mushroom clouds, he said, "No, they won't, no need to worry." Wright said modernizing the nuclear arsenal is urgent, many of our weapons are very old. To maintain global leadership, the stockpile must be updated, the only way to ensure international peace and domestic prosperity. The US already runs an extensive program to ensure reliability, computer simulations, tests with non-fissile nuclear materials, and missile/warhead trials. Some experts say these make full test explosions unnecessary. On November 3, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning denied that China is conducting nuclear weapons tests. Fentanyl cooperation a facade? The under-the-surface drug war. At the Trump-Xi meeting, Beijing toned down wolf warrior rhetoric and pledged to work with the US on fentanyl. But the Wall Street Journal flagged multiple uncertainties. Fentanyl's toll on American health has become a national security issue. After the meeting, Trump said that because China had taken very strong steps, and Xi promised more, the tariff he'd imposed on China for its role in the fentanyl trade would be cut from 20% to 10%. A White House official said Washington and Beijing will set up a working group in the coming weeks to establish objective metrics and ensure commitments are met. China is tightly linked to the opioid crisis. Mexican cartels produce fentanyl and smuggle it into the US, sourcing precursors from China. Brookings Institution drug policy expert Vanda Felbab-Brown says Beijing adjusts counter-narcotics cooperation in line with the overall U.S.-China relationship. Does Xi's quick promise signal warming ties? Radio France Internationale argued on October 31 that videos show a stark contrast. While Trump ad-libs freely, Xi reads verbatim, insisting the CCP has never sought to challenge or replace anyone. Whose words were those? How do they square with his long-trumpeted, "The East is rising and the West is declining"? Things are not so simple. Fentanyl is part of Beijing's national strategy and unrestricted warfare against the US, something it won't easily abandon. The New York Post reported that as Washington cracks down on fentanyl, Chinese pharmaceutical firms and cartels are producing a new, more lethal synthetic, nitazenes. DEA Houston Division Senior Agent Jonathan Pullen said, "We're behind. These synthetics keep evolving. If we tighten controls on certain precursors, they switch to others, something China is already doing." Pullen noted nitazenes, like fentanyl precursors, are made in China, then finished by Mexican cartels and shipped to the US border. If so, Beijing's new opium war against the US is far from over. Its innovation in this arena is indeed keeping pace with the times. Energy war reserves. Is Beijing hoarding oil for conflict? On November 3, the Wall Street Journal reported that customs data show China imported over 11 million barrels of crude per day in the first 9 months of this year, more than Saudi Arabia produces daily. Analyst Lin Yi of Rystad Energy says China's total storage capacity rose from 1.4 billion barrels in 2015 to just over 2.0 billion by end 2024. Energy security has long been a priority for Beijing, yet roughly 70% of its oil consumption is imported. To reduce dependence, China has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into reviving domestic output and building the world's largest EV industry. It began building strategic petroleum reserves in 2004. After 2 decades, vast above and underground sites now dot places like Zhoushan, east, and Dalian, northeast. But Beijing never discloses total volumes. Analysts estimate its reserves at 1.2 to 1.3 billion barrels. All this suggests that China ties are only in a temporary ceasefire, sensitive and fragile issues remain. On November 2, Treasury Secretary Besant told Fox News Sunday, China dominates the rare earths market, but unfortunately they've sometimes proven unreliable partners. He warned that if Beijing continues to choke exports, the Trump administration is ready to raise tariffs on China. Washington stands ready to wield its maximum leverage. We don't seek decoupling, but we must de-risk. A brief truce is a mirage. Supply chains are moving out for good. On October 30, Beijing announced a one-year suspension of new rare earth export restrictions. But Besant worries Beijing won't always keep its promises. After the Trump-Xi meeting, U.S. tariffs on China were reduced, but the effective rate remains around 47%, a record high and above rates on Vietnam or Thailand. American firms' shift of production out of China has been underway for years and will continue. Benjamin Jerkin, a VP at Milwaukee-based ABC Group who helps U.S. clients manage Asian supply chains and move production to Vietnam, Malaysia, and India, says the latest tariff tweaks won't alter corporate plans. Many firms have already decided to diversify beyond China regardless of tariffs. Nicole Craft Brands once made most of its arts and crafts lines in China, but tariffs cut deeply into profits. It has been building a supplier base outside China, considering Vietnam, Mexico, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Turkey. On rare earth exports, although Beijing agreed to pause the October 9 restrictions for a year, it has not rolled back the licensing regime launched in April. That means U.S. auto, electronics, and defense firms wanting Chinese magnet imports still face lengthy approvals, often weeks, and possible denials. One magnet importer said even with a license, supply chains are severely delayed. In this environment, U.S. companies are likely to keep seeking rare earth sources outside China.